What I find quite kind of groundbreaking in a way is the idea of standing in front of a painting and listening to how the painting sounds. It relates to what we're doing now. It relates to what Brian's doing in his studio, which is this multi-layered music. Brian and we met each other about 20 years ago. As it were, we just collaborate extremely easily in a very relaxed way. He's very honest with me and I'm honest with him. We were on the same exhibition in London and he came and said he liked my work very much, or the most, on the show. And so we became friends, and then eventually he said, come into my studio. And so began this collaboration, which has gone on for about 5 years. We work with music all the time when we're painting. Only recently, actually, just the last time we were painting together, we started painting while listening to his music, which was quite interesting, considering that we hadn't done that before. Kandinsky was the whole kind of pioneer on this whole concept of hearing colours, and I think although Brian and I haven't spoken about it directly, there is certainly the philosophy of that involved in our process. Of course, films are motion pictures with sound, so we're used to that. But we're not used to looking at a still picture, a photograph, a painting or a print, and listening to the sound of that picture. And that's what I think is something that's quite groundbreaking. And that is how we made those soundtracks. We put them in his sound studio, and we looked at them, and there would be a man in a fur coat, for example. So I said, okay, I want to make the sound of fur. How does fur sound? Fur sounds like this. So he made that he recorded me doing that, and then he puts it into his magic, which it kind of amplifies it, it layers it, and before you know it, there's some magical relation, a sound relation to this man in this kind of fur coat. You sit listening with headphones and looking at the painting and contemplating the painting. I think it's about awareness, it's about becoming aware, and that is the function of art to such an extent. If one goes to a good exhibition, you walk out of the exhibition and one looks at a piece of graffiti, a blot on the pavement, with a certain clarity and awareness that is amplified. And I think if one can achieve that, then one has achieved something. It can take you to heaven. And opening up our creative and our senses, sharpening our senses, without having to take drugs.
And in the death, as the last few corpses lay rotting on the slimy thoroughfare, the shutters lifted an ancient temperance building high on Poacher's Hill, and red, mutant eyes gazed down on Hunger City. No more big wheels. Fleas the size of rats sucked on rats the size of cats, and 10,000 peopleoids split into small tribes, coveting the highest of the sterile skyscrapers like packs of dogs assaulting the glass fronts of Lovely Avenue, ripping and re-wrapping mink and shiny silver fox, now leghorns, family badge of sapphire and cracked emerald. Living now, the gear of the diamond dogs.
This ain't nothing, no! This is genocide!
I met David Bowie, but I painted with David Jones. When I worked with David Bowie on our paintings together, he described us as leaving our egos at the door and getting on with the art making. And I think that sums him up very well, or certainly the process working together, in that one would forget that he was David Bowie and we would get on with the task of making art. And hence his focus on the process rather than the outcome being the important part of our collaboration. I found a very much kindred spirit and same approach to art making working with Brian Eno. They are quite similar animals. We are all quite similar in the sense of our approach to art making being one of constant progression and change and fresh ideas and experimentation and chance, making the most of mistakes that happen along the way. And so I think musically, if I take myself out of the equation, I should imagine the way that Brian Eno and David Bowie worked together being very fluid and very easy. And obviously Brian can talk about that, but in my experience of having worked with both of them, where I left off with David Jones, I took up with Brian Eno a few years later. The similarities were very strong. And so it's delightful that I'm being able to continue. I regard our collaboration, Brian and mine, as an ongoing one, because we come together and work at various times and there's no set, rigid construct around our collaboration. So, yeah, I mean, looking back, when I started working with Brian, he said to me that when he works with a musician, he knows from the first few bars whether that musician is serious or not. And he could see from my first few brushstrokes that I was a serious artist to work with. And the actual process of collaboration was one of being a gentleman. You almost allow the other person to give and do the best that they can. And you then support that and do the best that you can, so that at no point are you kind of obliterating the next guy's marks. You're rather enhancing them and using them. And that's just a very constructive approach to making art in collaboration, and again very similar to musicians working together in collaboration, where they give of their best for the final product to be beautiful.
Cool. That's nice.
I'm an artist, and I've been an artist for 30 years now. I was born an artist. I was terrible at school. If I don't work for a certain amount of time, I do become a bit crazy. I had started painting in New York. I was incredibly inspired by the Basquiat and the Keith Haring kind of stuff that was happening around me. But both Basquiat and Keith Haring died of sex, drugs and rock and roll. As if I'd stayed there, I think I'd be dead. Andy Warhol inspired me to become an artist. I was lucky enough to meet him and have lunch with him. So it is a kind of a tribute to Warhol with the use of the repeat silkscreen. So I wasn't in a big hurry to make my life, commit myself, until I actually met Warhol. And I walked out of his factory and I said, I'll never do anything else. Nelson Mandela, of course, is not only a symbol to South Africans, but to the world, or everything we aspire to. This work has been going on for over a year. It was coming into contact with Benny Gould, the photographer, and also using the work of Bob Gassani from Drum magazine. So instead of using a different image for each picture, which I could have done, I've used the same image in different paintings, which I think presents quite a nice artistic challenge to take that image as far as one can. Mandela means to me the human element in us. Something I've been quite wary of throughout my career is being a propagandist, but I think art should transcend that. And I think by transcending it, you're actually being more political. Mandela being a human and a politician, not a god. The first thing that comes to mind that I want people to see when they look at my work is beauty. The beauty is a celebration of life, and it's a celebration of Mandela, and Mandela is beautiful. I do believe that there is a content of my work where I am a kind of sangoma. I've been told this by my mentor Nelson Makuba, that we are the sangomas and our art is our muti, and I do firmly believe that, and I think that my art has and should have some kind of a healing power to the people that see it.